6 weeks passed since Ambassador John Miller's meeting with the Galactic Council. On the edge of Varaxian space, Communications Officer Lisa Grant removed her headset and rubbed her tired eyes. The monitoring satellite where she worked orbited, a lonely gas giant far from any major trade routes. Most days were quiet, but today was different. "You need to hear this," Lisa said to her supervisor, Commander Paul Wright. Commander Wright looked up from his reports. "What is it?" "Distress. Signals from 3 Varaxian outposts in Sector 7. They all went silent within hours of each other." Wright frowned and took the headset. After listening for a moment, his expression changed. "Forward these to Earth Command, then delete them from our local records." "Delete them?" "But protocol says, these are new orders," Wright interrupted, showing her a message on his secure tablet. "Any unusual activity near Varaxian space is to be documented and sent directly to Earth Command, then removed from station logs." Lisa hesitated. "Sir, those outposts sound like they're under attack." "And not by us," Wright said quietly. "At least not officially." Lisa's eyes widened as understanding dawned. The rumors among the crew about Protocol Prometheus weren't just talk. Something big was happening. "Yes, sir," she said, and began the transmission to Earth Command. On Centauri Prime, home of the Galactic Council headquarters, Elder Zalthrak of the Varaxian Empire stared at the reports on his display with growing concern. 3 minor outposts going silent might be a coincidence. 6 was troubling. But now 12 border stations had ceased communication in the past week. Could it be equipment failure? He asked his military advisor, General Kraz. "Unlikely," the general replied. His scaled skin was darker than Zalthrak's, marked with battle scars from decades of service. "The pattern suggests coordinated strikes. No demands, no warnings, just silence." "Pirates?" "No pirate group has this kind of reach or discipline," Kraz said, "and there's something else." The general brought up a new image on the display. It showed a small, unmarked ship of unfamiliar design. This vessel was captured on surveillance before the Telos outpost went dark. "The design appears to be human." Zalthrak dismissed this with a wave of his clawed hand. "Impossible. Humans don't have the military capability to challenge even our border forces. Their technology is centuries behind ours." "Perhaps," Kraz said, carefully. "But our intelligence on humans is limited. They've kept their systems largely closed to outside observation." "They're primitives," Zalthrak insisted. "I saw their representative, soft, weak, wearing plant fibers for protection." Kraz remained silent, but his inner eyelids flickered with doubt. "Increase patrols along the borders," Zalthrak ordered. "Find whoever is responsible and make an example of them." On the Council science vessel Seeker of Truth, researcher Cavell reviewed the data for the 3rd time. Something wasn't right. "Look at these energy readings," she said to her assistant. "They don't match any known ship configurations in our database." Her assistant, a young Altarian named Mira, studied the charts. "The signature almost looks like... but that's not possible." "What?" "It resembles theoretical models for quantum displacement drives. But no species has successfully developed that technology." Cavell's compound eyes reflected the blue light of the display. "No council species, perhaps." She pulled up another file, a report she had submitted 3 years ago, warning about unusual technological progress observed in human space. It had been dismissed as paranoia. "We need to warn the council," Cavell said. "About what?" "We have no proof humans are responsible for the outpost attacks." Cavell pointed to another data set. "For the past decade, I've been tracking unusual ship movements and resource-gathering operations near human space. They've been systematically studying our technology, particularly Varaxian defense systems. But how? We monitor their communications, their trade routes. What if they know we're watching?" Cavell asked. "What if what we see is only what they want us to see?" Frank Weber wiped sweat from his forehead as he stepped out of the mining facility on asteroid colony LV-7. The small colony was a joint operation between humans and Kaldurians. extracting rare minerals from the asteroid belt. As colony director, Frank had worked hard to maintain good relations with the Varaxian overseers who controlled this sector. He looked up at the unfamiliar ships that had appeared in orbit an hour ago. They were clearly of human design but bore no Earth Alliance markings. His communication device chimed. "Director Weber," a calm voice said. "This is Captain Ryan Howard. We're conducting a system survey. Your colony is not in danger." "Captain, your ships aren't broadcasting identification codes," Frank replied. "The Varaxian patrol will be here in less than a day. They won't take kindly to unauthorized vessels." "We won't be here when they arrive," Captain Howard said. "Just needed some scans of the local infrastructure." Frank lowered his voice. "What's going on? I've heard rumors." There was a pause before Captain Howard responded. "Let's just say, it would be wise to schedule your Earth leave soon, Director, within the next 2 weeks." The communication ended. Frank stared at the ships above. They weren't armed like military vessels, but something about their presence felt ominous. He called. "The Varaxian Sector Command immediately." "Unidentified human vessels?" the Varaxian officer repeated. "Probably just smugglers or independent miners testing boundaries." "They're scanning our defensive systems," Frank insisted. "Humans are always playing at war games," the officer dismissed. "They barely understand the technology they've licensed from council races." "I really think you should send someone to investigate," Frank pressed. "File a report and we'll look into it when resources allow," the officer said before ending the call. Frank looked back at the ships. They were methodically moving around the colony, their sensors sweeping across every structure. They weren't attacking, just observing. Somehow that seemed worse. On Earth, in the underground facility known as Strategic Command, General Alice Bennett studied the holographic map showing Varaxian space. Dozens of small lights indicated targets that had already gone dark. Hundreds more showed planned operations. "Phase 1 is proceeding ahead of schedule," her aide reported. "The stealth insertions have been completely successful. No alerts have been triggered in Varaxian space." "And Ambassador Miller?" she asked. "Still aboard the Horizon at Centauri Prime. The Council has scheduled another session regarding Earth's observer status petition for tomorrow." General Bennett nodded. "He'll decline to attend. By then, we'll be ready to begin Phase 2. She touched a control, and the map zoomed in on a large Varaxian colony world called Calthus Prime. Population, 8 million. Military assets, substantial. "Alert the 7th Fleet," she ordered. "Operation First Strike begins at 600 tomorrow. Remember, civilian evacuation protocols are to be followed precisely before any bombardment." "Yes, General." As her aide left, Bennett looked at the small image displayed on her desk. It showed Ambassador Miller in his specially made suit, standing proudly before departing for the council meeting. She remembered her conversation with him before he left. "If they accept us as equals, we'll have peace," he had said. "If they don't, we'll have justice." She turned back to the map. The Varaxian Empire had ruled through fear for 2,000 years. They were about to learn that humans were not the primitives they thought, and it all started with an insult about a suit. John Miller stood at the viewport of the Earth diplomatic vessel Horizon, watching as the massive Galactic Council station grew larger against the backdrop of swirling nebula gases. The purple and blue clouds made the angular metal structure look almost beautiful, though John felt no appreciation for the view. His mind was focused on the task ahead. "Ambassador, we'll dock in 10 minutes, said Captain Diane Foster from behind him. John nodded without turning. "Thank you, Captain." His reflection in the viewport showed a man in his 50s with short gray hair and a face marked by years of military service before his diplomatic career. The suit he wore was charcoal gray with subtle blue threads that caught the light when he moved. Karen had spent months making it by hand, finding the perfect fabric, ensuring every stitch was perfect. A diplomat's first impression mattered, she had told him, especially when representing all of humanity to aliens who had mastered space travel when humans were still figuring out agriculture. "Are you sure you want to go alone?" Captain Foster asked. The council allowed for a delegation of 3. A single representative makes a statement, John replied. Besides, the fewer humans present, the fewer targets if things go badly. Captain Foster frowned but said nothing more. She'd served with John during the Martian conflict and knew his instincts were rarely wrong. John checked his appearance one final time. The suit fit perfectly. In the inner pocket, he carried a small holographic projector with images of Earth, his identification credentials, and a quantum-encrypted communication device. Nothing else. No weapons were allowed in the council chambers. The horizon shuddered, slightly as docking clamps engaged. "Good luck, Ambassador," Captain Foster said, offering a formal salute. John returned the gesture. "If I'm not back in 6 hours, follow Protocol Prometheus." "Sir, that's the—" "I know what it is, Captain," John said quietly. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." The council chamber was enormous, a perfect circle with seating for hundreds of representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations. The air smelled strange, a mix of different atmospheric requirements being filtered and blended to accommodate all species. John was guided to a small platform in the center by a blue-skinned attendant with 4 arms. "Remain here until addressed," the alien said in perfect English. "Speak only when permission is granted." John nodded and stood straight, hands clasped behind his back in parade rest. Around him, the chamber filled with beings of all descriptions. Some looked almost human with minor differences. Others defied human biology completely. Crystalline structures that floated above their seats, gaseous clouds contained in mechanical shells, and things John couldn't even begin to describe. A tone sounded, and the chamber fell silent. From an elevated platform, a tall reptilian being with iridescent scales stood. This was Elder Zalthrak of the Varaxian Empire, current head of the Council by rotation. The 392nd session of the Galactic Council recognizes the presence of the representative from Earth, a candidate species seeking observer status, Zalthrak announced, his voice translated through the chamber's systems. "Human representative, identify yourself." John took one step forward. "I am Ambassador John Miller of Earth, appointed by Unified Earth Government to establish diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council and its member species." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. John remained still, knowing this was all carefully choreographed. Earth had been studying the Council for decades through secret observation posts and intercepted communications. Zalthrak raised a clawed hand. "The Council acknowledges Earth's petition for observer status. Before we proceed to deliberation, does any elder wish to address the human?" A being made of what appeared to be living metal stood. "The Kaldurian Collective wishes to inquire about humanity's faster-than-light capabilities. Our observations indicate you have possessed this technology for less than 50 standard cycles." 42 Earth years, John confirmed. "Our first interstellar colony was established 36 years ago." This caused more murmurs. John knew what they were thinking. Humans were newcomers, babies in space exploration. Most Council species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Another elder, this one appearing as a tall, thin humanoid with pale blue skin, spoke next. "The Altarian Dominion wishes to know why humans believe they are ready for Council observation status when your species still engages in internal conflicts." "Our last global conflict ended 15 years ago," John replied. "We have achieved unified planetary governance and peaceful expansion to 11 colony worlds." He could see the dismissive looks. To them, humans were primitive, barely worth notice. That was fine. That perception had served Earth well during its covert observation period. Zalthrak raised his hand again, silencing the chamber. "The human speaks well," he said, his reptilian mouth forming what might have been a smile. "Though I find myself curious about something more immediate." John tensed slightly. This wasn't part of the expected protocol. "Human," Zalthrak continued, "I notice you wear sections of processed plant and animal fibers wrapped around your body. Is this your species' formal attire?" John kept his face neutral. "This is a suit, Elder. It is traditional diplomatic attire for formal occasions on Earth. Zalthrak's inner eyelids flickered in what John recognized as amusement. How fascinating. While advanced species have evolved natural defenses or merged with technology, humans still drape themselves in scraps. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Tell me, human, Zalthrak continued, does your species wear these suits because you lack natural armor? Or is it to hide your soft, vulnerable flesh from potential predators? The laughter grew louder. John remained perfectly still. The suit was handmade by my wife, John said quietly, though the chamber's systems amplified his voice. She worked on it for 3 months to ensure I would represent humanity with dignity. Dignity? Zalthrak repeated, his voice dripping with mockery. Is that what you believe this demonstrates? To us you appear as a soft, weak creature playing at civilization, wearing plant matter because evolution failed to provide you with proper protection. The council chamber erupted in various sounds of alien amusement. Some species buzzed, others clicked or rumbled, but the intent was clear: collective ridicule. John took a deep breath. In human diplomatic tradition, an insult to an ambassador was an insult to the nation they represented. What Zalthrak had just done went beyond protocol breach. It was, by Earth standards, an act of aggression. The human representative may respond, Zalthrak said, clearly expecting John to react with anger or embarrassment. Instead, John simply nodded once. I have nothing further to add at this time, Elder. Earth thanks the Council for this audience. Confusion replaced amusement in the chamber. This wasn't the reaction they expected. The session regarding Earth's petition will continue tomorrow, Zalthrak declared, somewhat disappointed by the lack of response. You are dismissed, human. John turned and walked out of the chamber with measured steps. His face revealed nothing, but his mind was racing through calculations, protocols, and the inevitable chain of events that would now unfold. Back aboard the Horizon, Captain Foster was waiting. How did it go? John removed his jacket carefully and hung it up. Contact Earth Command immediately. Encrypted channel. Foster's expression grew serious. That bad? John looked at her, his eyes cold. Protocol Prometheus is now in effect. Foster's face paled. Are you certain? That means... I know exactly what it means, John interrupted. The Council has made their position clear. Now they'll learn what happens when you insult a human in a suit. As the communication system connected to Earth, John stared out at the Council station. In 6 months, many worlds within that station's jurisdiction would be reduced to ash. And it all started with a comment about a suit. The people of Calthus Prime woke to an unusual sight. Their blue-green sky was filled with ships, dozens of them, arranged in perfect formation. They weren't the familiar shapes of Varaxian vessels, but sleeker, darker craft that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Governor Drek of Calthus Prime stared at the display in his command center with growing horror. The orbital defense platforms had gone silent. Communications with the rest of the Varaxian Empire were jammed, and now a message was being broadcast to every communication device on the planet. This is Admiral Susan Clark of Earth Fleet. Calthus Prime is now under Earth authority. You have 6 hours to evacuate all civilians to the designated safe zones marked on the attached maps. Any military personnel who lay down their weapons will be granted safe passage. Those who resist will be neutralized. This is not a negotiation. The message repeated in the Varaxian language, clear and precise. They can't be serious, said Drek's military commander. It's just 6 human ships. Our planetary defense fleet has over 30 vessels. Drek wasn't so confident. Contact Elder Zalthrak immediately and begin civilian evacuation procedures. Evacuation? But that would cause panic. Better panic than death, Drek said grimly. I've heard rumors about missing outposts. If humans are responsible, the communication officer interrupted. Sir, we've established contact with Elder Zalthrak. Zalthrak's scaled face appeared on the main screen, his inner eyelids blinking rapidly in agitation. Do not yield to these human threats, he commanded. This is obviously a bluff. Their technology is primitive. Our defense fleet will crush them. With respect, Elder, there are millions of civilians on Calthus Prime, Drek argued. The Varaxian Empire does not bow to primitives, Zalthrak hissed. Launch your fleet immediately. I am sending reinforcements from the Home Guard. Show these. Humans, what happens when they challenge the Council's premier military power? The connection ended before Drek could protest further. Launch the fleet, he ordered reluctantly. But continue civilian evacuation protocols. Above Calthus Prime, the Varaxian defense fleet moved toward the human ships. From the command deck of his flagship, Fleet Commander Vex felt confident. His 30 warships were the pride of the Varaxian Navy, each armed with disruptor cannons and protected by energy shields that had never been breached. The 6 human vessels made no move to retreat as the Varaxian fleet approached. They're not even raising shields, one of Vex's officers noted with surprise. As I said, primitive, Vex replied. Target their engines first. Elder Zalthrak wants prisoners to interrogate. The Varaxian fleet moved into attack formation. Vex gave the order to fire. Nothing happened. Weapons systems are not responding, reported a confused weapons officer. Throughout the Varaxian fleet, systems began shutting down. Engines, weapons, shields, even life support, all disabled by some invisible force. On the main communication channel, a human voice spoke calmly. This is Admiral Susan Clark. Your systems have been compromised by quantum infiltration programs, placed in your network 6 weeks ago. Your weapons will not fire. Your shields will not activate. You have 30 minutes to abandon your vessels before we destroy them. Vex stared at the screen in disbelief. Impossible. Our systems are isolated. No external signal could— Sir, interrupted his second in command. Evacuation pods are launching across the fleet. The crews are abandoning ship. Vex slammed his fist on the console. Cowards. No Varaxian warrior retreats. 30 minutes later, from the surface of Calthus Prime, Governor Drek watched as the pride of the Varaxian fleet erupted in silent flashes of light. One by one, each vessel was destroyed with surgical precision. The evacuation pods were left untouched. How is this possible? Drek whispered. His question was answered 6 hours later, when the human fleet began its descent upon military installations across Calthus Prime. What followed wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Bases that had stood for centuries were reduced to molten slag. Weapon depots exploded in chains of fire visible from space. Yet, true to their word, the human forces avoided civilian areas. The safe zones remained untouched. On Centauri Prime, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber, usually organized and formal, was in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding explanations and action. Elder Zalthrak stood at the center, his scales pale with rage or fear, perhaps both. The humans have launched an unprovoked attack on Varaxian territory, he declared. I call upon all council races to unite against this threat to galactic peace. From the entrance of the chamber came a voice. Unprovoked? The room fell silent as Ambassador John Miller walked in. He was flanked by 2 human officers in military uniforms, their faces expressionless. John himself wore no suit today. Instead, he was dressed in the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. You were not invited to this session, human, Zalthrak hissed. Yet here I stand. John replied calmly. I come bearing a message from Earth Command. He stepped forward, his footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. 6 weeks ago, I came before this council as a representative of Earth, seeking peaceful relations. I was met with mockery and disrespect. In human diplomatic tradition, an insult to an ambassador is an insult to the nation they represent. John looked directly at Zalthrak. The suit was handmade by my wife, Karen. She spent 3 months perfecting it for my presentation to you. Elder Zalthrak, your insult was noted. Consider this our response. He activated a holographic projector in his hand. Images appeared above the council floor, Varaxian outposts reduced to debris, the destroyed fleet above Calthus Prime, military bases on fire. This is just the beginning, John continued. For centuries, the Varaxian Empire has bullied smaller races, annexed territories, and acted with impunity. Your treatment of Earth was merely the final provocation. You cannot hope to stand against the combined might of the Council, Zalthrak warned. John smiled slightly. We are not standing against the Council. Our quarrel is specifically with the Varaxian Empire. Unless other races choose to involve themselves. He looked around the chamber. Many representatives averted their eyes. The Varaxians had few true allies among Council races. Their power had been maintained through fear, not friendship. Earth now presents its terms, John announced. The complete surrender of all Varaxian military forces. The resignation of Elder Zalthrak from the Council. Reparations for past aggressions against developing races. This is outrageous, Zalthrak sputtered. The Council will decide its own position, interrupted the Altarian representative. Perhaps we should hear the humans out before committing to war. Other representatives nodded in agreement. Zalthrak looked around in disbelief as his support crumbled. John Miller watched with satisfaction. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades, gathering intelligence, developing technology in secret, placing operatives throughout Council space. The insult about his suit hadn't caused this conflict. It had merely triggered a plan long in the making. You have 24 hours to consider our terms, John said. If they are not accepted, we will continue to dismantle the Varaxian military installation by installation, planet by planet. He turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving chaos in his wake. As the doors closed behind him, he allowed himself a small smile. The Council had believed humans to be weak because they wore suits instead of armor. They were about to learn that true power had nothing to do with appearances. The emergency council session stretched into its 10th hour. Representatives from 27 species argued, threatened, and bargained as news of more Varaxian defeats arrived by the minute. The once proud empire was falling apart faster than anyone thought possible. We cannot stand by while humans destroy a founding member of the Council, argued the representative from the Drakari Confederation, a longtime Varaxian ally. Where was this concern when the Varaxians annexed 3 of my people's colony worlds last century? Countered the small, furry representative of the Tellarites. Elder Zalthrak watched in growing despair as more representatives spoke against supporting the Varaxian Empire. His inner circle of advisors had been steadily shrinking as members sought to distance themselves from him. A Varaxian military officer burst into the chamber, ignoring protocol completely. Elder, Nexus 7 has fallen. A shocked murmur spread through the council. Nexus 7 was the largest Varaxian shipyard, the heart of their military production, believed to be impregnable. Impossible, Zalthrak said, but his voice lacked conviction. Human forces appeared inside the defensive perimeter, the officer explained, still trying to catch his breath. They simply materialized. No warning, no warp signatures. They were just there. The council chamber erupted in fearful discussion. Faster-than-light travel was well established, but tactical jumps with such precision were thought impossible. The energy requirements and navigational calculations should have been beyond any known technology. On a view screen at the front of the chamber, footage from Nexus 7 played. A fleet of Earth vessels appearing simultaneously at different points, inside the shipyard's defensive grid. The Varaxian ships caught unprepared were destroyed before they could raise shields. Leading the human attack was a sleek vessel with EFS Horizon's Wrath emblazoned on its hull. The same ship that had brought Ambassador Miller to the Council weeks earlier, now transformed into an instrument of war. These humans lied about their capabilities, Zalthrak accused. They presented themselves as primitives while hiding advanced technology. The Altarian representative stood. Did they lie? Or did we simply assume they were primitive because they didn't boast of their achievements? Did we dismiss them because they looked different, dressed different? More voices joined. The debate. The council was fracturing before Zalthrak's eyes. Admiral Susan Clark stood on the bridge of the EFS Horizon's Wrath, watching as the last Varaxian defense platform at Nexus 7 exploded silently in the vacuum of space. All targets neutralized, reported her tactical officer. Minimal casualties on both sides. Most Varaxian personnel evacuated as ordered. Susan nodded with satisfaction. Begin Phase 2. I want every piece of salvageable technology cataloged and prepared for transport back to Earth. Yes, Admiral. She turned to her communications officer. Status of other operations? All proceeding as planned. Varaxian forces are in retreat across 3 sectors. Their command structure appears to be collapsing. Susan wasn't surprised. Earth intelligence had studied the Varaxian military for decades. They knew the Empire's strength was built on fear and reputation, not actual tactical superiority. Once that reputation was broken, the entire system began to fail. Admiral, her second-in-command said quietly, we're receiving requests for private communications from 8 different council species. They're seeking to establish separate peace agreements with Earth. Susan smiled slightly. Just as we predicted. Route them through diplomatic channels. The real victory wasn't just defeating the Varaxians militarily, it was reshaping the political landscape of the galaxy. Humanity had been planning this moment since they discovered alien observation posts on Earth 200 years ago. In his private chambers on Vorax Prime, Elder Zalthrak stared out at the night sky. For the first time in his long life, he felt fear. Not for his empire, that was clearly lost, but for himself. His guards announced a visitor. Zalthrak turned, expecting another advisor with bad news. Instead, a single human male entered the room. He was tall and lean, dressed in a simple black uniform with no rank insignia. Who are you? Zalthrak demanded. How did you get past my security? My name is Alan Scott, the human said calmly. As for your security, they're taking a nap. They'll wake up with headaches, nothing more. Zalthrak reached for the alarm, but his hand froze in midair. He couldn't move. Neural disruptor, Alan explained, holding up a small device. Another technology we developed while pretending to be primitives. He approached slowly, removing a small wooden box from his pocket. He placed it on the table between them. A gift from Earth, Alan said. You might want to look inside. When Alan deactivated the neural disruptor, Zalthrak immediately reached for the box. Inside was a charred piece of metal, his family's signet ring, passed down through 20 generations of Varaxian nobility. This was in my private vault, Zalthrak whispered. It was, Alan agreed. Until we retrieved it during the attack on Kalthus Prime. Your summer palace there had quite the collection of treasures. Zalthrak's scales paled. What do you want? Just to deliver a message, Alan replied. In 6 hours, human forces will enter this system. Before that happens, Ambassador Miller suggests you consider your options carefully. Alan turned to leave, then paused. By the way, your secret communication with the Drakari about building biological weapons to use against Earth, we intercepted that too. Zalthrak sank into his chair as the human disappeared as silently as he had arrived. On Earth, President Eric West reviewed the latest reports from the front. The Situation Room was quieter than expected for a planet at war. There was none of the frantic energy depicted in old films, just calm professionals executing a plan decades in the making. The Varaxian defense is crumbling faster than anticipated, General Bennett informed him. At current rates, they'll have no effective military capability within 2 weeks. And the Council? Fragmenting along predictable lines, 11 species have already reached out for separate agreements with Earth. 6 more are expected to follow within days. President West nodded. And Ambassador Miller? Still on Centauri Prime, directing diplomatic efforts. The Council has scheduled a formal vote on removing the Varaxians from their permanent seat and replacing them with Earth, West said with satisfaction. Yes, sir. Phase 3 is ready to implement upon your order. The President considered the holographic display showing the galaxy, with Earth forces highlighted in blue, slowly spreading across what was once Varaxian space. Humanity spent centuries looking up at the stars, wondering if we were alone, West said thoughtfully. Then we discovered the truth. Not only were we not alone, but we were being watched, studied like animals in a zoo. And now the animals have broken out, General Bennett added. No, the president corrected. We were never animals. We were simply patient. 200 years of preparation, technology developed in secret, intelligence gathered carefully. He looked at the blue dots spreading across the galaxy. And all it took to trigger our response was one arrogant alien mocking a suit. What are your orders regarding Phase 3, Mr. President? President West's expression hardened. Proceed, as planned. The galaxy needs new leadership. The Council has proven itself unworthy. 3 months after the first strike, the Galactic Council chamber was transformed. The curved table where the Varaxian delegation once sat prominently now hosted humans. The empire that had controlled a third of known space for 2,000 years had lost everything in just 90 days. John Miller stood before the full council, wearing a suit identical to the one Zalthrak had mocked. The chamber was silent as he spoke. The terms of surrender are non-negotiable, he stated. The Varaxian Empire will surrender its council seat to Earth. All military assets will be placed under Earth supervision for 50 years. Reparations will be paid to 17 species who suffered under Varaxian expansion. Former Elder Zalthrak, stripped of his ceremonial armor and wearing simple robes, sat in the witness area. His once bright scales were dull, his posture defeated. "And what of me?" he asked, his voice barely audible. John looked at him directly. "You will be publicly stripped of rank and exiled to an outer colony. Your personal assets will fund schools on worlds the Varaxians conquered. You destroy an empire because of a personal insult?" Zalthrak asked. "No," John replied calmly. "We removed a tyrant because the galaxy deserves better leadership. The comment about my suit was merely the moment we chose to act on plans made long ago." The council representatives watched in silence as Zalthrak signed the surrender documents. Some seemed relieved, others worried about what this new human power would mean for them. As the formal proceedings ended, Council Secretary Tivlani approached John. Tivlani was one of the oldest members of the council, a being made of crystalline structures that chimed softly when he moved. "Ambassador Miller, might I have a word in private?" John nodded, and they moved to a small meeting room off the main chamber. "You've achieved what no species has managed in 2 millennia, Tivlani said, the complete defeat of the Varaxian Empire. Yet something puzzles me." "What's that?" John asked. "How did humans, supposedly new to the galactic stage, develop such advanced technology in secret? The quantum drives, the infiltration systems, the neural disruptors, these are beyond what even the most advanced council races possess." John smiled slightly. "Would you believe me if I said humans are simply more creative?" "No," Tivlani replied, crystal structures shifting in what might have been amusement. "The truth, please. The council deserves to know what we're dealing with." John considered the request, then nodded. 217 years ago, humanity discovered an alien observation post on Earth's moon. Rather than announcing the discovery, Earth's nations united in secret to study it. A Varaxian post? No. Something older. We never identified the species, but their technology gave us a glimpse of what was possible. We discovered that Earth had been under observation for centuries by multiple species, including the Council. Tivlani's crystals dimmed in surprise. "The Council has laws against interfering with developing worlds. Laws that were routinely ignored," John said. "We found evidence of genetic experiments on early humans, technology planted to guide our development along certain paths. Humanity was being shaped according to someone else's plan." "So you prepared for war," Tivlani stated. "We prepared to take our rightful place," John corrected. "For over 2 centuries, we developed technology in secret while allowing observers to see only what we wanted them to see. We built hidden fleets, we placed operatives throughout council space. We studied every species, every technology, every weakness, all while appearing to be simple newcomers to space travel." "The best deception is one where people deceive themselves," John said. The council saw what it expected to see. A primitive species in suits instead of armor, using basic technology, seeking admission as humble petitioners. Tivlani's crystals chimed softly, And your plan now? Earth will take its place on the Council. We will reform the system that allowed the Varaxians to dominate for so long. The galaxy will enter a new age of actual cooperation rather than rule by the strong. Noble goals, Tivlani said, but achieved through deception and warfare. Sometimes old systems can't be fixed from within, John replied. Their conversation was interrupted by a message on John's communicator. He read it and turned back to Tivlani. If you'll excuse me, I have a call from Earth Command. Alone in the secure communication room, John activated the screen. President Eric West appeared. The surrender is complete, John reported. The Council has accepted all terms. Excellent, the President replied. The Senate has approved Phase 4. You are authorized to begin. John raised an eyebrow. So soon? I expected we would allow the Council to adjust to our presence first. Intelligence. Suggests 3 Council species are already forming a secret alliance against us. We can't allow another power block to develop. The old Council system must be dismantled entirely. John nodded slowly. I understand. I'll begin preparing the Council for the announcement. How do you think they'll react to learning that the Council itself will be dissolved and replaced with the Earth-led Galactic Federation? With shock initially, John admitted, then fear, eventually acceptance. The same progression we've seen with the Varaxians. Let's hope it doesn't require the same demonstration of force, the President said. After the call ended, John stood at the viewport overlooking Centauri Prime. The massive Council station had been the center of galactic politics for thousands of years. Soon it would be just another administrative center in humanity's new order. His assistant entered the room. Sir, your formal uniform has arrived for tomorrow's ceremony. Thank you, but I think I'll wear my suit instead. The same. One from your first Council appearance? John nodded. Karen made it specially for representing humanity. It seems fitting to wear it as humanity takes its rightful place. Outside the viewport, Earth ships moved into position around the Council station. Not as a threat, but as a reminder. The Council had mistaken humanity's appearance for weakness. They had mocked a human in a suit. Now planets burned, empires fell, and the galaxy was transformed. John straightened his tie and turned toward the door. Tomorrow, wearing his wife's carefully made suit, he would announce the dawn of a new era. Human dominance was not just a result of superior technology or military strategy. It came from something the Council species had forgotten over their long rule: hunger, adaptability, and the dangerous mistake of underestimating those who appear weak. As he prepared his speech, John smiled at the irony. The most powerful beings in the galaxy would soon take orders from a human in a suit.